Okay. We are continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Siman Ayin Hey, Daf Kuf Chet Amud Aleph of the regular prints of Mishna Berurah, and we started the fascinating topic of what is considered erva, and more specifically, whether or not the area between the knee and the ankle is considered halachically erva. This is a big topic, a big machloket. The Mishna Berurah Chafetz Chaim, Alav Shalom, he writes based on the two sources that he brings in Sha'ar HaTziyun that perhaps the area between the knee and the ankle is not considered shok, but it is dependent on the minhag of every given place, and it will be determined based on the minhag. But area above from the knee is already considered shok, and the Gemara says shok by isha erva, area of shok is erva. So regardless of the custom, regardless of the minhag, if someone is showing any of the area of shok, that would be asur to say bracha in front of it, to say divrei Torah in front of it, and so on and so forth. Now, we mentioned that many areas of halakha, when it comes to sniut, even though that technically would not be asur, if the minhag of that area, that place, that country, that city was to be stringent, then it becomes actually asur. For instance, this is a good example. The Ben Ish Chai writes in Sefer Od Yosef Chai in Parashat Bo, in the very beginning, he seems to indicate that the area of a shok, the main area of shok, starts from a knee and above, but he says in Baghdad, people cover, they have long dresses, long skirts, so therefore he covers almost up until their ankles, maybe 2/3 of a tefach, which is 5 centimeters above the ankle, is still maybe showing, because that didn't come all the way to the ground, but he says anything above that area, if it's showing, you cannot say Shema, even though that technically speaking, that's not considered erva because of shok. Now, we also mentioned that the majority of the poskim, whether you're talking about the medievals, the Rishonim, whether you're speaking about the Achronim, they disagree with this assertion of the Chafetz Chaim, and they hold that the area above the ankle and up to the knee, and of course above that, is considered erva, is considered shok. Chacham Obadiah has a fascinating tshuva that he was asked from a Syrian school. This is years ago, decades ago. He was asked, this is printed in Chelek Vav of Yabia Omer in Yoredah Siman Yudalit. He was asked the following question. He was asked, well, if you have a dress code for the school, that's skirts, but the girls started wearing short skirts, mini skirts, right? So, and it's very hard to, it's a modern Orthodox, whatever it is, it's very difficult to put your foot down and put inches and this, they'll roll it up, whatnot. So is it better to have pants that is made for women, right? Pants that are made specifically that are baggy, and for women back in the time, they didn't have like this stretch pants that's like they painted it on your body. Those are all baggy pants that were made for women. Is that better, or is the shorter skirts better? Which one is preferable? So Chabad goes through a long tshuva, trying to prove which one is better, and so on. A fascinating tshuva. So in the very beginning of that tshuva, literally in Ot Aleph, Harabadia goes to discuss what is considered shok in halakha. When we say shok be'isha erva, what is considered shok? And he very strongly proves that shok is the area above the ankle and below the knees. So the area between the ankle and the knee is called shok. Hence, it would not depend on the custom of the government or the government, the country. It would not depend on any. So even if you live in a country that everybody goes with skirts, and skirts are not too short, it's not mini skirts, but they are not covering the entire area of knee and up to ankle, that area still would be considered erva, and despite and regardless of the custom of the society, would be asur to read Shema, say brachot, say Divrei Torah, all that in front of that area of the body, unless it's covered with opaque cover, right? This is for women. This is for women. Shok be'isha erva, right? But it's for men, which means that men cannot say in front of it any Divrei Torah, and can't say tefillah and brachot in front of it. So that is the basic gist of this area of Shulchan Aruch. Now we go further. Says the Mishna Berurah. Says the Mishna Berurah. We studied also the Ramah. I just want to complete this last piece that we did from the Ramah. Ramah says, "Yesh omrim davka beishto aval beisha acheret afilu pachot mitefach." This that we say tefach beisha erva, it has to be like a whole area of tefach, which is 8 centimeters or whatnot. That's only for your own wife. There are those who say for another woman, it will be even a little bit. You don't need a whole tefach to make it asur. Even a smaller area than a tefach will be still asur, says the Ramah. So the Mishna Berurah on that writes, Ben penuya ben eshet ish. This does not make a difference if it's a woman that's married or a woman that's not married. It has nothing to do with whether or not the woman is married. Pachot mitefach, smaller than tefach. Ve'im hashok meguleh, yesh omrim da'afilu beishto pachot mitefach asur. This is a very fascinating anecdote. It's a small detail, but it's a very important one, that by shok, when it comes to shok be'isha erva, is more important shok than the rest of the body, which is betefach be'isha erva. Because shok, when it comes to the area of your legs, the pasuk in Yeshaya Hanavi calls this area erva. It says, Gali shok ivri nahar, tegal ervatech vegam tireh erpatech. The pasuk calls it vidivre Kabbalah erva. So it's not just the regular derabanan. When we say tefach ba'isha, erva is derabanan. Any part of the body that's not even erva midoraita. Of course, there's the area of the private area of a woman, and maybe agavot we spoke about, and so on. Those are erva deoraita. But then you have erva that's derabanan. Tefach ba'isha erva is derabanan, right? If you just have a random part of what body let's call it above the elbow, right? A tefach, that's the rabbanan. But then shok is not just like any other tefach of a isha, of a woman, but is rather erva midivrei Kabbalah, according to many, because of that pasuk in Yeshaya Navi that calls it tegal ervatech, that it calls it directly erva. So it's not rabbinic law that came and said, you know what, let's ban this. But it's rather already in the Nevim Ktuvim is called already an erva. So says the Mishna Berurah, therefore, if the area of the leg is uncovered, it's exposed, yesh omrim, there are those who hold, and this is the Bach, the Taz, the Gedolei Achronim. There are those who say that even if it's your wife, even if it is smaller than a tefach, any of it that is showing, it will be asur, because this is an area that causes more hirhur than other. It's more thought-provoking, so to speak, and it's more provocative than other areas of the body. This is only talking about saying Shema. The isur hu le'arbe poskim likrot neged ha'meguleh afilu b'ro mechaven le'istakuli. That the isur is you cannot read it even if you're not intending to gaze and to look. Now, first of all, the Kaf HaChaim writes that from Maran Shulchan Aruch, mistimat Maran, from the fact that Maran does not differentiate, you see that even shok, which is exposed, even the legs that are exposed from knee below, is not considered erva less than a tefach. Maran does not differentiate between that, right? Even in a different woman, even if it's not your wife. But lechatchila says the Kaf HaChaim, we should be mahmir for those who are stringent and not to read Shema in front of a leg of a woman that is exposed. That's not a proper conduct, says the Kaf HaChaim. But be that as it may, for Isur of Histaklut, according to everyone, is Asur. In other words, let's open a very important parenthesis, says the Mishna Berurah, says the Chafetz Chaim. Don't get the wrong idea to think that if it's less than a tefach, it's mutar to look at a woman. No, the Gemara says, even if you gaze at a pinky, an open part, a pinky of a woman, and is mitkaven le'anot, and you have intention of receiving some sort of pleasure, you have hana'ah, it's pleasant for you to look at it, and you're looking at it because it is pleasant, that is asur. And Chazal say, you are transgressing a direct lo ta'aseh of the Torah of lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei enechem. Do not be drawn after your eyes and after your hearts. Acharei enechem, says the Gemara, zu zenut. This is something that brings promiscuous mentality to the society. We want to stay away out of that, right? We don't want people to be involved in promiscuity, even though that it's not promiscuity itself, but it is something that is considered provocative and promiscuous, and therefore it's not a proper act. The Gemara goes as far as saying, and this is harsh, right? We just had the Gemara that if you want to give change to a woman and you give it slowly in order to spend more time to have a pleasant interaction with her in that way, even if he has mitzvot u'maasim tovim like Moshe Rabbeinu, even if he will be a tremendous personality, it will be still not unsketched. You would not leave that encounter unsketched spiritually. It will be a tremendous blow spiritually to a person. Again, Chazal knew this, and Rambam, I want to just paraphrase. I want to paraphrase a Rambam at the end of Isurei Biyam, Perek Aleph Chaf Bet. Rambam writes, Gedolei Tanaim, Gedolei Chachamim, the great Talmidei Chachamim, when it came to these areas, they were so open in order to break the ice with their students to show that there's no embarrassment to admit your humanity and being a male human being, right? With hormones and with nature and with all that comes with being a human. And they would say to their students, watch me that I shouldn't stumble to be in yichud with my daughter, with my this, with that, even though that's not easy to say those for a great rabbi to his students, but they would say, they would open up the conversation with their students to say, look, even I have to watch, even I have to be careful. And in this way, they would take the shame out of being careful in these areas, recognizing that we are weak creatures, and there's nothing to be ashamed of admitting that we are people with erva, with humanity, with a human side to us, with hormones and desires and so on, and you have to be careful. We recognize we're weak when it comes to this area. David HaMelech was a tremendous person. Yosef HaTzadik were tremendous people. And yet the Gemara says in Sotat of Lamed Vav that even though that Yosef withstood the Nisayon of the wife of Potiphera, he lost 10 Shvatim because of that. He, to some extent, almost lost the Nisayon. And that's Yosef HaTzadik. David HaMelech completely failed, flat out failed the Nisayon of Bathsheba that he had. And we're talking about a person that says, Libi Halal Bekirbi, that he almost defeated completely his Yetzer Hara in general, that he killed, so to speak, his Yetzer Hara, and yet he had this issue. So therefore, it's not, when we learn this is a difficult thing to learn, it's certainly a difficult thing to teach. But it's because we are kind of like ashamed of that part of human side that everybody has. But Chazal are very tuned into this to say, look, this is what we call a slippery slope. You start with this slightest, smallest thing, and it slides in, and once it's in, it goes down the tube very quickly, very fast before you know it. And therefore, you have to be extremely mindful, vigilant, and careful in this area of halacha. And therefore, says the Chafetz Chaim, that has nothing to do with gazing, looking, and benefiting from a sight of a woman. That will remain asur for all practical purposes. But here we're talking about whether or not is mutar to say Kriyat Shema in front of it, even if you're not gazing at it, even if you're not looking at it. If you're exposed to an area that's called erva, that would be asur even b're'iyah ba'alma, when you're not intending to look, when you're not intending to draw pleasure, or it's not a pleasant sight, still would be asur because it is exposed to erva. And Bezrat Hashem, we will be continuing this in the days to come.